A very good morning to you in Africa. A very good morning to all of you from across the world. What a delight and privilege it is to see so many familiar faces, some new ones, key partnerships, and of course, key collaborators as we gather here for what is the second annual Africa Markets Conference for 2026. Now, much of last year was truly characterized by a level of resilience that we saw when we described activity on the African continent. But this year, the conversation promises to be different. We move from ambition to action, unpacking how best it is that we truly pull at all the levers that will unlock the growth potential that exists on the African continent. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, His Excellency, the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Honorable Finance Ministers, Central Bank Governors and Deputy Governors, Honorable Excellencies who are present representing key financial services institutions across the continent, to you mobilizers of capital, captains of industry, governance gurus, reformers of policy, implementers of change, and even our hedge fund heroes in the room. It's a delight and a privilege to welcome you all incredibly warmly to the 2026 Africa Markets Conference brought to you by Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm hoping to build up the excitement that we have here in the room. I know that we talk numbers and we talk facts, but the truth is, true to African culture, when we greet each other, we acknowledge each other with a spirit of enthusiasm. So I'm going to greet you one more time, hoping that I hear a resounding good morning from all of you who are present here with us here in the room as we look to build up on the momentum and the energy that we want to possess over the next 2 days. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, mobilizers of capital, chasers of alpha, reformers of policy, hedge fund heroes, individuals who are shaping the growth of the African continent that influences the rest of the globe incredibly positively. A very good morning to the AMC 2026 conference. I appreciate your cooperation, and most importantly, that is the energy that we look to maintain. I say this because as we gathered here today, many of us are representing different organizations. And over the years, through our levels of expertise and engagements with peers in the industry, one key theme has remained dominant when it comes to the global stage: Africa's role in growing and impacting the rest of the global economy. Today, we look to unpack what this means, especially given the highlights that we've witnessed in the last 24 months. Changes and shifts in geopolitics, whether it be implementation of potential challenges and gaps when it comes to funding, and of course understanding how this plays a critical influence in the world and the realm of AI and growing use of technology that we witness. This just lays a very basic foundation of some of the themes that we look to explore throughout the AMC 2026 conference. We'll hear from various industry leaders, we'll hear from panels, and most importantly, work on forging solutions in unison to make sure that by the end of this year, as we head towards the year 2050, where 1 in 4 people in the globe will be African, that we fully understand the impact and the influence that we have as an economy and economic force as a region. So I'm excited again, ladies and gentlemen, to have you all join us here today for what promises to be a phenomenal 2-day conference. And most importantly, we call for your active participation. I'm aware a few of you are still coming into the room, and we'd like to strongly encourage you to make your way forward. There are some empty seats, even right up to the front row. We promise that doesn't make you a target for any direct questions from our moderators. However, I can't hold that true to the theme of the full-day conference. We do want to strongly encourage you to engage and actively participate in many of the conversations and themes that we will be discussing. And perhaps just to whet your appetite as to what themes will be explored today and over the course of the next 2 days, we're going to fully unpack and entrench ourselves in unlocking the levers that help us fully understand how we turn infrastructure into bankable assets, accelerating the energy transition with Africa at the center of empowering industries, deepening and unlocking our capital markets as a key priority for opportunities to access financing across the continent, fueling intra-African trade and building regional resilience, and most importantly, reframing sovereign debt. These are some of the topics that will be discussed and addressed throughout the course of this conference, and I do believe it comes at a very poignant time if we consider just some of the news headlines that we've witnessed here this morning. Across the globe, uncertainty remains. Whether it's the moves that we see in the commodity prices, which continue to be bolstered by the potential threats of conflict between the US and Iran, understanding the outcomes of the Supreme Court in the US regarding Trump's positioning on tariffs, and even those very same tariffs which actually face another potential increase from 10 to 15% over the weekend. But outside of the dynamics that we see regarding the US and its global influence, we also need to be mindful of the partnerships we have with our colleagues and counterparts, not only in the East, across the rest of the continent, but also the growing influence we see coming out of the Gulf, whilst maintaining the partnerships that we also have in Europe. So the opportunities are broad. Threats and concerns do remain, but most importantly, it's how we propel ourselves to navigate these opportunities that we'd like to tap into. So I'm hoping that you're all looking forward to the two-day conference that we have today and excited to hear much of your feedback. I do want to strongly encourage you that it's going to be very interactive, where you'll have an opportunity to engage with the panelists and panel discussions and various speakers who will be on stage throughout the course of the 2 days. One thing that we are aware of as I moved to the house rules is that you all play a very critical role in keeping our economies going. And that means you need contact with the rest of the world. I must say, I've been told that we have at least 14 countries or more that are represented here in the room, and perhaps just to feel the sense of where we're coming from and, of course, the level of excitement. Any of you visiting South Africa or Cape Town specifically for the first time, by show of hands? We've got quite a few. Okay. So we know where to take you at the end of the day if you missed out on last night's party. More than anything, we've shown you that South Africa and Africa as a whole really has an energy, a vibrancy to making sure that we're able to build on the relationships we establish. On that note, perhaps to begin us off on the formalities of today's program, to help solidify the messaging that we look to underscore as we move from ambition to action, allow me to warmly welcome to the front of the stage, ladies and gentlemen, an individual that many of you are very familiar with. A leader in his right when it comes to banking and financial services, but also playing and serving a critical role in making sure that as we are gathered in the room, we understand that it's not just about the unlocking of capital. That's critical. However, what we're here to establish and provide, largely through the leadership of Standard Bank Group and Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking, is understanding that we're providing an interface of increased interaction, where desired policy reform shifts to become a market reality. To help us expand on this topic further, and most importantly, warmly welcome us to AMC 2026, please warmly welcome to the front of the stage, and perhaps I need to add a disclaimer. When I say warmly, in South Africa, we like to work on levels. You might have been present last night and noticed that sometimes technology is a great friend, but it can be a fickle friend. But there's levels to themes that we have, whether it's load shedding, whether it's a water crisis, whether it's the kind of funding we need, or even sovereign ratings. So what I'm looking for in terms of our applause and welcome for our guests and our speakers here today is not a C- credit rating. We're looking for some optimism and enthusiasm and warmth in your applause. So perhaps we need a practice round, or maybe you'll do justice to our first speaker for the day. But what I'm welcoming you to do is to warmly applaud, to welcome, to accept, and most importantly, true to African form, perhaps some ululating is also accepted. So ladies and gentlemen, as we welcome our first speaker to give us our opening address for today, please warmly welcome to the front of the stage the CEO of Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking under the Standard Bank Group, Mr. Luvuyo Masinda.